Our Woj reporting that Klay Thompson plans to have discussions with the Mavericks, the Lakers, the Clippers, and the 76ers in these opening hours of free agency. Those opening hours are now underway as we welcome in our reporter covering the Warriors, Kendra Andrews. Kendra, so as we reported, the likelihood of Klay returning to the Warriors, it seems to be slimmer and slimmer by the second as talks have devolved between these two camps. And yet, Klay's impending departure, it still feels shocking in many ways for this Splash Brother duo. How did we get to this point?
Yeah, I mean, we have to flip back pretty much a whole calendar year, really to last summer when the Warriors and Klay could have first come to a new agreement and gotten him a new deal and avoided this entire situation, but it didn't happen. And I'm told the way that last summer played out left a sour taste in Klay's mouth. The thing that has been repeated to me over and over and over again by so many different people is Klay wants to feel respected, he wants to feel appreciated, he wants to feel valued. And how last summer went down, he didn't feel that way. So he enters the year already a little bit unhappy. He starts the year off playing poorly. He eventually gets moved to the bench. His role for the rest of the season is bopping all around. Meanwhile, the contract negotiations, nothing moved from the summer. All the while, Malika, he had a hard time adjusting to his game and his body after those two really difficult injuries a couple years ago. So he's dealing with all of this in his head. Meanwhile, he isn't getting that respect, again, that appreciation, that reassurance from people high up in the organization. And that really, really caused a splinter between him and important people in the Warriors. And now look, could the Warriors have maybe eventually put an offer down in front of Klay? Yes, but I was told earlier this month that by the time they do it, and the Warriors, by the way, have a history of taking some time before coming up with big deals, like with Steve Kerr, like with Draymond Green. It could take some time, but the question was, by the time the Warriors offered Klay something, would it have been too late? Would he have already detached himself mentally from coming back from the Warriors? And that's pretty much what we've seen play out here these last few weeks.
Kendra, thank you so very much. That really gave us a clear and full picture of how things have devolved here between Golden State and Klay Thompson, as Kendra mentioned, really dating back to a year ago. So, Ramona, we're hearing about Dallas now. We're hearing about the Lakers, the Clippers, several other teams. What does this look like now for Klay Thompson as he pursues these avenues?
Well, I think he's obviously going to take a lot less money. I mean, he made $43 million last year. Now we're talking about something, a mid-level exception is 13. That's $30 million less.
Yep.
That's a lot less money. Now, if they can work out a sign-and trade, each of these teams can come up with different amounts of money. The Sixers obviously have the most amount of cap space available, but Paul George is their primary target, and so that's earmarked for him if he were to make that choice. Right. But Dallas has more right now. Dallas has a $16 million trade exception that they created in the Tim Hardaway deal, and that could be a sign-and trade. They can even create more for Klay and get him up near 20. The Lakers can create more by doing several of the trades we discussed earlier. And so it's a question of, do you want to, if you're already going to be taking a lot less, do you want to pick the destination you want to go to, or do you want just a little bit more money? How much money is he going to leave on the table to go to where he wants to go? And I think it's a fascinating situation. Klay Thompson on the Lakers? Klay Thompson on the Mavs?
I mean, it's wild.
I mean, he would look real nice next to Luka Doncic.
Klay Thompson anywhere but the Warriors is wild.
Klay Thompson happy, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. I'm pretty sure. I'm not counting his pockets, but Klay looked like a
he was miserable
man
last year.
He was, but he
miserable. He was miserable.
Except on the 1st and 15th of every month.
That's what I'm saying. But we all know that as a player, you know this, Richard. If your mind is not right, you're not going to perform at your best, and we're seeing that. The fact that he's taking out, so I've got a question for the panel. He's taking a meeting with the 76ers. So you am I getting this right? So the 76ers could possibly get PG and Klay Thompson?
Yeah.
That is financially feasible. They have enough cap space to do it. Let's pause for a second. Let's pause for a second. We go real fast on these shows. There's a lot of transactions coming in.
Yep.
This is the end of something magical in basketball. Like, this was a dynastic team, and this guy, from the threes in Oklahoma City to the threes against Toronto to coming out with a busted ACL to shoot the free throws to the loudest ovation I heard in that arena ever. This is the end of something, and we need to take a moment to appreciate it. We also need to take a moment to ask, wait a second, hold on here. Same with the Clippers if Paul George leaves.
Yeah.
What's plan B here for this team that has one of the 10 to 12 greatest players of all time still playing at an all-NBA level? They just waived Chris Paul. That salary slot's gone. They might lose an all-time great Warrior, all-time great player for nothing. That player would be gone. They don't have a ton of financial flexibility. It's not like they opened up $40 million in cap space. If this team wants to win right now at a decently high level, what direction are they going to go in? We saw them sniff around Paul George. I expect them to be creative and aggressive, but doors are closing, as Wendy said, and they might be grasping at straws in the next 72 hours.
We're talking about a trio that won 518 games together, regular season to playoffs. That's the sixth most by a trio all time. A trio that won 4 championships together. And when you were talking about breaking that up, someone who is going to have a statue outside of Chase Center at some point, you have to do that on the sole mission of maximizing the end of Steph Curry's career. And so there has to be something that right now I am missing as these transactions are just now starting to percolate and pour in, that they believe is going to achieve that more than what they have in front of them.
It always started and will end with Steph Curry.
Yep.
This dynasty is built on number 30's back. And I think that, you know, as much as it was the Splash Brothers, and I think that the Warriors did make a good faith effort to keep them together, you could feel this coming. I mean, Perk, I've heard you say this all year long, and this is one of those ones you turned out to be right. Okay, but you could feel it the last game of the year. The last game of the year, he was going around like taking it in from the Chase Center.
Yeah.
He went around the locker room and was asking if anyone wanted to ride on his boat home after the game, and Chris Paul and Moses Moody went with him. I mean, you could feel him know that this is probably it.
Sacramento, when he's looking around.
He could just feel it. And everyone said we want him back. Everyone said how important he is to them. But this has been coming, and now it is finally here. And Zach's right. We should take a minute to talk about Klay Thompson and his legacy. Coming back from those 2 major leg injuries, just an unbelievable warrior, okay?
We're taking a moment to recognize the whole legacy and, you know, arguably the best shooting backcourt in the history of basketball. I get all that. But where's Steph Curry and Draymond Green at this moment?
Listen.
Like, what? No, seriously, what are they doing behind the scenes? Because it's obvious that they're not sitting up here fighting to keep Klay. Because if they were,
we don't know that.
We don't know that.
How?
Just because people aren't tweeting and talking.
It ain't about tweeting and talking.
What do you think?
So you mean, hold on, time out. So you're telling me that if Steph Curry walks into Mike Dunleavy's office or calls Joe Lacob and said, I don't care what you got to do, make sure Klay is here by the start of next season. It don't get done?
Apparently not.
I think you're right,
no.
Perk. I think you're right, but I also think those 2 guys want Klay to be happy.
I also think that's generally a lose-lose for players, right?
Yeah.
If you go and you exercise your will and it doesn't work out, well, then it's your fault. Or you're meddling in the front office's business.
That's been franchise. That's what franchise players do, Zach. They go snooping around. They supposed to get in that business, especially a guy like Steph Curry.
Well,
we talk about Klay Thompson frustration. We saw frustration from Steph Curry, right? A guy that was going out there still producing at a high level, but felt like he wasn't getting the same production from the personnel around him.
Well, and look, say what you want about Klay's performance. There was also another person that was dealing with some things inside of that organization that got their extension finished. So when I look at the Golden State Warriors' ability to keep their guys, to look over some things and make sure everything is smoothed out. But you're right. Steph's got to speak up. But I believe that Steph has spoken up because he's seen on the other side what it looks like without Klay. I believe that Steph isn't just sitting back waiting for a Woj tweet.
Well, I think that also you have to imagine that these conversations have happened and that there's been some sort of agreement as to what the best way to move forward is to maximize the end of Steph's career. But I think Zach's right. It's not just a moment that we need to take to recognize what Klay Thompson has done and may continue to do, but it looks like that time may be dwindling. So I just want to take a look. You guys are going to remember these. Some of Klay's best moments in a Golden State Warriors uniform. So it's January 23rd, 2015. This is when he erupted for 37 points in the third quarter against the Kings, the most in a quarter in NBA history. This was Klay.
He was, what, how many threes did he hit in that quarter? 7, 8 threes?
I mean, yeah, how many timeouts did the Kings call, too?
You couldn't call enough.
It was a barrage from Klay Thompson. And then this is a year later, May 28th. This was when Game 6 Klay, the legend, was born. It was the Western Conference Finals, Zach, against the Thunder. 41 points, 11 threes, forcing that Game 7, and then, of course, the 3-1 comeback for Golden State.
And an all-time sliding doors moment in the NBA.
Oh. We were really hoping for OKC to finish this off. We were really hoping.
And yet,
You being the Cavs.
Yeah, yes. To be clear, the Cavs, the whole organization was rooting for the Thunder.
and then he had that career-high 60-point game against the Pacers in just 29 minutes, sitting the entire fourth quarter, 60 points in 29 minutes.
And then they sat him out in the fourth quarter.
Boo!
We wanted to see 81.
They were up like
One of
30.
these games was when he had 11 dribbles the whole game.
Yeah.
That's this one. That's this,
Okay.
October
Sorry.
29th. This is when he made the record 14 threes against the Bulls, and then the birth of Headband Klay, too.
There's a lot of Clays.
There's a lot of Clays, a lot of iterations of
What's the
Klay.
Jackie Moon guy gonna do?
Google
Well,
scaffolding.
he got the
Clay.
head,
What
the
did it look
cut
like?
on his head, and then he put on the headband, and then it kind of, never went back after that. And then, again, Game 6 Klay. This was after he tore his ACL. He returned to, as Zach said, one of the loudest ovations I have ever heard to hit both of his free throws before exiting the game for good. It honestly gives me chills to watch this back. I was at
think
this
he realized
game with
how
my
hurt he
dad,
was.
and it was, that was a special moment.
So much adrenaline going.
And then January 9th, 2022, 941 days later, after tearing his Achilles during his ACL rehab, he made his return against the Cavs. He scored 17 points en route to a win. He is going to go down as one of the best players in Warriors history.
NBA history.
There is
NBA
no question
history.
about
Yeah,
it.
sure.
And as you can see, when you see his accolades stack up here, he's 6th in points in franchise history, 2nd in three-pointers made behind only his Splash brother Steph Curry, 4th in three-point shooting percentage, an all-time Warrior.